Let's have our discussion here, and today we'll do it differently. Actually, we'll begin with our discussion revolving the Safari Rally, and in this studio we have Milton Nyakundi, a seasoned journalist and in-house analyst, and of course again today we'll be talking to Phineas Kimathi, the CEO of Safari Rally WRC project, who is on standby. He'll be talking to us about the Safari Rally. Of course, we have other news around the COVID-19 pandemic, how it has wreaked havoc on sports around the world, and the lead that the German Bundesliga has taken to giving everyone the hope that sport will come back. Now, we start with the Safari Rally because the iconic Safari Rally that was due to return to the World Rally Championship roster this year has been postponed to 2021 due to the coronavirus pandemic. Organizers and the government confirmed on Friday. Amina Mohamed, the sports secretary, said the decision was arrived at following an agreement between the Kenyan government and the World Rally Championship, that is the WRC promoter, and the International Automobile Association, that is FIA. This year, Safari Rally was due to return to the WRC calendar for the first time since 2002, scheduled as the 8th round on July 16 to 19 on the original WRC schedule. Now, that is part of the action in the past Safari Rally that this country has witnessed.
You know how it is, you miss one bump and that's it, so I hope we have also the luck on our side.
Fourth overall, two fathers-to-be, Petter Solberg and Phil Mills. Their babies both due on the same day in December. Now that's teamwork. After his triple whammy of bad luck on stage one, Didier Auriol was back to full speed. Tommy Mäkinen had made the best of the conditions to take the lead.
Slippy and very tricky.
Carlos Sainz was lucky to make it back to base. A voltage sheared off the steering. McRae and Griss tried to fix it.
It's pulled out of the steering rack and the ball joint.
As in Monte Carlo, Mäkinen passes the stricken McRae.
Well, what amazing pictures there of Safari Rally, the famed World Rally. And if you are keen enough to listen to the commentator who's talking about big names like Didier Auriol, Tommy Mäkinen and the likes, and that tells you the kind of sport we've had in this country. And it was on its way coming home. And of course, they've said until next year. Milton Nyakundi is on standby, and of course, Phineas Kimathi are also on standby. And Phineas, I'll come to you first and talk to you about this. Is it heartbreak? Would we explain this or describe it as a heartbreak that we are not going to have Safari Rally this year until next year?
Yeah, good morning, viewers. First of all, Kenya has waited for 18 years to get back to the WRC circuit. And we were very hopeful that this will happen, or this would happen in July. We all know what is happening around the world. We have to take our health first, the health of the participants, the health of the teams, the health of the Kenyan people, the health of all other stakeholders in this big event. Yes, obviously, there was a lot of disappointment knowing that we couldn't have the rally in 2020. But the beauty is that if we've waited for 17 years, yes, what about another 365 days? Another one.
That is the hallmark of optimists. I like that, Phineas.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Well,
yeah.
Sorry, just go on. Maybe I'll ask my question.
Yeah, we have been assured by all the relevant bodies that we will be there in 2021. Mm-hmm. That's when we start our, involvement in World Rally Championships. And we hope that all goes well to make us remain on the calendar for the next 3 years, which means if all goes well, we should actually continue hosting the World Rally Championship Series for another 3 years after 2021.
After the candidate rally, that is last year, because I was there in Naivasha and I saw amazing, rally drivers doing their thing, and they were really happy that it was going to happen this year. And I don't know, from the bottom of your heart, you believe that, well, this is it for Kenyans. We have to stay put and wait for it.
Yes, Nyakundi, Toskin and Nyakundi, you must appreciate the fact that it is not just Kenya. It's not just about Kenya. There are only 14 rounds around the entire globe. And in Africa and the Middle East, Kenya actually is carrying the responsibility of delivering a World Rally Championship event in the whole of the African and the Middle East region. So it is way beyond just looking at it as a Kenyan, affair. But the beauty is that when you have such a heavy responsibility, yes, you must, spend very minimal time worrying about challenges or postponement, and especially worrying about things that you can't change. No one knew anything about Corona. No one, not even the superpowers.
Sure. Milton Nyakundi, you must marvel at the optimism that Phineas Kimathi has really shown, that we've waited for 17 years. It won't break a bone if we wait for 365 more days.
Well, to be honest, Robin and Phineas, good to see you. It's been such a long time. And
yes, good to see you.
Glad that you're staying safe. And I agree with Phineas, Robin, that I share in that optimism. That yes, it took us 18 long years. That is almost a whole generation. So for us to wait for a further year shouldn't really break us in terms of the hope and expectations that we have. Yes, disappointing as it may be, the truth is that we better stay safe to see the rally in a year's time than take chances. And have a section of our people that would have loved to be part of the return of the safari to the WRC, missing that because they would be statistics, fatal statistics of the COVID-19. That for me is much more important, and it is a decision that is welcome. And of course, Phineas and the team with the government and everyone have made that decision following or picking the cue from other organizations, including the IOC that extended the Tokyo 2020 Olympics by a further year. But although I think we need to remind everyone, I don't know whether Phineas, that is the same decision that you will be taking in terms of that WRC Safari 2021 would still retain the same name of 2020 as the Olympics decided, Phineas.
Yeah, what we are saying is that instead of starting in 2020, we have deferred the start of WRC in Kenya and Africa to 2021. So everything remains the same. Okay. We have been working very hard to deliver a world-class event in July, and those preparations actually will continue. Today, the contractor is going on, putting together the service park in Naivasha, and by Friday, we had finalized with our supplementary regulations. We have got the safety plan in place. Our sponsor, who is mainly the government and partly KCB, the bank, are all ready to make sure that we have what we require.
Yeah, I got also the information that the route map is complete. Everything else is complete. I want also to believe that the government has put in the funding that will see the guarantees that WRC wanted. In terms of the map, will it change, or now that you finished it, it's closed and just waiting for 2021?
Nothing will change Toskina as far as I'm concerned, unless obviously the Rift Valley sinks further. we'll make sure that we retain the same itinerary as for 2020.
In terms of our drivers, because we had the qualification format, we saw the Kenya National Rally Championship has also been affected. Will you be giving maybe a leeway to Kenyan drivers because of the lost time for them to participate at the WRC?
Well, when it comes to rallying, you don't exactly have qualifications like you have in soccer or many other team events. But first of all, we have the World Rally Championship teams, which we refer to as the manufacturers. So they get the first priority, which means the first 15 cars would be priority 1 cars for manufacturers like Toyota, Ford, and Hyundai. So once they have their slots, then we have what we call WRC2 or priority 2 drivers. These are the R5 cars like the Skodas and many other budding, drivers in Europe. And then we have our own Kenyan drivers and those who are competing in the Africa Rally Championships. So once we've got all these groups, slotted in, then we see whether we still have space for our very homegrown champions who don't have homologated cars. But generally, the safari was not going to attract any non-homologated cars. So I think that's the first item that we consider before we enlist competitors. We were targeting a total of 50 cars. And if we had more than that, we would actually have gone maybe to 55.
Wow. Well, Phineas, just a curious question in terms of maybe 2 questions on this line. One is when you say that the preparations would continue, we are approaching the end of May, so ordinarily within the next month or half, we were going to have this event going down. So in terms of continuing with the preparations for another 1 year, what exactly are we looking at? As the CEO, as the project, are you looking at probably having COVID-19 permitting once again, that maybe towards the end of the year you would have some sort of events, sort of warm-up events, or, what exactly would the preparations entail for that further 1 year? That is my first question. And along those lines, how then has this impacted on your planning in terms of the resource allocation? Because you've got to do another 12 months of preparations. That means even the routing, all the venues that had been set up. Obviously, there would be an element of maintenance that is required. How does that affect your resource pool and budgeting for that matter?
Yeah, first of all, the minute we have COVID-19 brought under control in the country and the government relaxes the restrictions and the containment of Kenya citizens in terms of movement, we will consider resuming the Kenya National Rally Championship as quickly as possible, just to make sure that drivers don't spend too much time, sitting and not doing any form of competition. And then after that, we will, like I've said, continue with the preparations. Now, when it comes to budgeting and funding, you realize that this event is such a big economic driver, and it's going to boost the image of this country the minute we resume. And I believe it will be the first international event that will take place after all the lockdowns and the airspace restrictions around the world. So it is an important event in terms of reviving the economy. You realize that in the budget estimates, I realized that the Ministry of Tourism actually got additional funds. It means that the government is getting the priorities right in terms of preparing to resuscitate the economy or to revive the economy. So I am sure that with the guidance and the continued support of our patron, His Excellency the President, and our Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador Amina Mohammed, we should be able to get the necessary support to continue with the preparations and to plug in wherever or the areas that we might have budgetary shortfalls.
Okay, Phineas, thank you very much for making time with us. But as a parting shot, before we let you go, the funds, the rally funds, I don't know, what do you have to tell them in this intervening period?
Yeah, the rally funds are quite, they are quite enthusiastic, and they should remain as optimistic as I am. And I've realized that from the many social media groups that have been set up for funds, they are uploading a lot of content that is keeping them quite entertained. So don't lose hope. Keep the spirit going and keep the revs high. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Phineas Kimathi, the WRC Safari Rally Project CEO. Optimistic as ever. He started these preparations a long time ago, and it's come now to fruition. But of course, with the COVID pandemic, it has had to be postponed for another 1 year. We hope that we'll be bringing you more of that information regarding the Safari Rally preparations as we go on. Now, we want to shift gears to football, where once again, Kenyans will be waiting with bated breath for today's decision of FIFA's disciplinary committee on the fate of Kenya after Football Kenya Federation defaulted to pay former coach Adel Amrouche 109 million shillings. The compensation case will be resubmitted for evaluation in Switzerland today, but it is not yet clear if the Federation made payment of any outstanding amounts by the April 30th deadline as directed by the disciplinary committee last month. FKF had been given until April 30 after the expiry of the 30-day extension to provide the Secretariat to the FIFA disciplinary committee with its position, including proof of payment of any outstanding amounts or face sanctions. Now, Milton, it will be a big day for Kenyans out there. Harambee Stars risk actually being thrown out of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers, and that case will be resubmitted today, the May 18th, as it was said. What does that portend for Kenya?
Well, Robin, there is one good thing I want to say, and just like drawing from the conversation that we had earlier, I'm very optimistic that as much as we are on the wrong end of things in terms of meeting our obligation as a country to the court as directed by the Court of Arbitration for Sport and the World Football Governing Body FIFA. I have a feeling that yes, COVID-19 is a tragedy, it's a pandemic, but it could be what will keep Kenya's hope in qualifiers for the World Cup in 2022 in place. And I say so because FIFA would obviously, and I expect that FIFA being the responsible, being a sensitive organization to the plight of its members, would be alive to the fact that yes, we are dealing with the extraordinary circumstances because of COVID, and they would, honestly, I want to believe that they are not going to slap Harambee Stars with any sanctions at this point for two reasons. One, COVID-19, the effect that it has had on sport, and FIFA would want to be considerate of that. And the second thing is that as much as they would want to mete out that disciplinary action on Kenya, currently there is no football that is going on at that high level in terms of international competitions. As such, we only have a possibility of one FIFA window, which would be in June, which is unlikely considering what has happened, the moratorium that has been occasioned on international football. And therefore, if you look at it, we would have another 3 months or so up to September when we are likely to have the first international match calendar. And that is how I see that FIFA would want to give us latitude enough to put our house in order. Again, we have a stalemate in terms of the leadership of the federation, and there is all manner of litigation that is currently going on with respect as to the effect of the letter by Veron Motsengo Omba reinstating Nick Mwendwa and his neck. We know that the SDT is about to make a ruling, a determination on that matter and the way forward. And the big question right now the country and FIFA would be grappling with is how to sort out the leadership issue that we have with the federation before then you can, come down with the hammer on.
Actually,
on
I was going to ask that question, because if there's no neck that can make decisions, I don't know if the Secretariat is in a position to even make payments or even sign checks, because if FIFA says we should pay by April 30th, I don't know who is that supposed to be. Is that Nick Mwendwa as an individual or the federation?
Well, that is one of the things that, without appearing to speak for the tribunal, which is due to make its ruling on Thursday this week, the question, or my position has been, and I believe it is shared by many stakeholders, is that Nick Mwendwa, by virtue of the Sports Disputes Tribunal in number 3 and 5 of 2020 making that decision on 17th of March, it effectively means that no policy decision can be taken by the federation at this point in time because there is no leadership. And let me try and put that in the right legal context. Nick Mwendwa and other people have been stating or clinging on to Article 43.2 of the FKF Constitution 2017 that states, and I want to use the word state because that is what it does, that the president shall remain in office until another one is elected. Now, yes, granted that that is what it is, but then when you look at the application of that 43.2 in terms of giving it meaning, it is lacking. It does not make any provisions because the president's functions are derived from Article 37 of the FKF Constitution, and the president then supervises the General Secretariat of the Federation in implementing the decisions that have been taken from the General Assembly, which is the supreme decision-making organ, to the National Executive Committee, which now is the decision-making body in terms of executive, mandate. So in the absence of that, it is my submission, and it has been for a long time, that you cannot save the president without giving functions or without delegating then that. In the same way, in the National Constitution, under Article 134, the president's functions during temporary incumbency, which is the electioneering period, are clearly provided for in terms of what the president can do and cannot do. That is the president of the republic. That kind of reasoning, that kind of provision of law is lacking in the article that is being referred to by the FKF, and therefore you cannot base any decision that Nick Mwendwa would make on any legal or factual grounding at this point in time. And that is what we hope that the tribunal will be able to clear the air on in terms of what the president is expected to do.
I don't know if that will be considered also by FIFA when they make their decision today, the FIFA Disciplinary Committee. But that is it. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we talk about the resumption of football across Europe and what it means for the entire sport.
This is KTN News.
To achieve great things in life, you must do little things every day, like the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate. 1, wake up, wake up. 2, Do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate and give yourself a future to smell about.
Pay cuts, forced leave and massive layoffs. These are becoming the norm rather than an exception as Kenya grapples with an economic crisis worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. How will the country navigate this? What are the possible implications for the employer, the employee, even the workers' representatives? How about the legal rights of all the players? This week on Front Row, we explore the rights of the worker against the harsh reality of a changing, even vanishing workplace. Only on KTN News Tuesday at 7:30 p.m.
Ikiwa wewe ni mjane, haisababishi wewe mtoto wako ndio aingie kwa gaidi. Haisababishi wewe mtoto wako aingie kwa drugs.
BBI version of evicting people and profiling Kenyans on tribal lines, or are you still on the BBI of uniting Kenyans?
Kuna county inaweza kuwa bila infrastructure. Ukweli au uongo?
Watoto ambao hawajakosea mtu yoyote. Hili ni piko kubwa.
Wamegonga tukutuku wakijaribu kuzuia wale, ni kama walikuwa wanazuia wale polisi ili wasiwa
ama viazi vyetu twende kuviuza mbali sehemu kama Mombasa, kisha hawa waende kununua Mombasa tena warudishe tena kwetu.
Kabla sianze kufly, hizo watoto wakiwa wadogo wanadipute kama tunangamiza hapo tunamaliza.
What do you say, Spence? Not much.
We are movies. We are music. We are pop culture. Youth Cafe, Friday from 8 till 8:30.
We value your feedback and welcome any comments, queries, or complaints regarding our news content. You can get in touch with us on SMS 22155, call 0719 012 450, or email feedback@standardmedia.co.ke, or you can send us a letter on Post Office Box 30080-00100, or deliver it to our offices at Standard Group Center, Mombasa Road, Nairobi. This is KTN News.
Welcome back to Sports Chat. If you are joining us, we're discussing about the return of football, and we've already dispensed with the Safari Rally that has been postponed until next year, but everything remains the same. We have already spoken to the CEO of the Safari Rally project CEO, that is Phineas Kimathi, and he's very optimistic that Safari Rally will still come back. It is still in the menu of the WRC and FIA, so we are hopeful that everything will be fine. Now we are moving to football again, where Spanish football has edged closer to returning after a long pause due to the COVID-19 pandemic. After La Liga, President Javier Tebas confirmed clubs in the two top divisions will begin training in groups of up to 10 players from today. The return to group training follows a government announcement on Saturday allowing sports teams to return to activity regardless of the status of the lockdown in their own region. Across also in Italy, the start of the full training at Italy's professional soccer clubs has been postponed from today as they continue to wrangle over the government's medical rules for dealing with the coronavirus. The Gazzetta dello Sport, state broadcaster Rai, and other media all said that the government's technical scientific committee had not ratified the rules which were announced last week, but then questioned by the Serie A clubs and the Italian Football Federation.
Ja, ich habe in der ersten Frage mitmachen, weil ich dann
Well, Milton, as you can see, Germany took the lead over the weekend. Starting on Saturday, the Bundesliga made its return. We've seen what is happening in Italy and also Spain. You must have been waiting for football to return, Milton, because like most of us who eat, drink and sleep football, that is what we were waiting for, Milton.
Absolutely, Robin, and it was such anxiety as personally as I waited for the games to begin on Saturday with the Dortmund Schalke 04 match at 4:30 on Saturday, and it was a good thing to see football back on our screens, but not just that, although like one of the writers has put it on the BBC that it was sterile, and I mean because of the lack of funds.
Yes.
But obviously it is good to see that the action is back, and what the Bundesliga has done, or Germany as a nation, is that they are providing the script for everyone else to follow, and where then they would find shortcomings, or where they find it does not suit whatever circumstances that you find yourselves in as a country, then you adjust it accordingly. But what the Germans have done, I think it was amazing. Even in terms of the awareness levels that they have done to the players and all the people involved in the games, you saw that they are even keeping the social distancing protocols even when they are celebrating, and they're not being carried away. They're not being carried
so funny, Milton, watching that game, Bundesliga game, Dortmund versus Schalke, players not hugging, just celebrating at a distance.
So it tells you how thorough they have been in terms of, you know, making sure that they pass the right information and the people are able to deal with the emotional aspect of the game and still stay safe. So really, for me, what is happening in Spain, where they are expected to start their group trainings today, what is happening in Italy, where they are calling for further consultation in terms of how they adopt the government protocols for in terms of the medical requirements for the trainings to start and eventually the game, I think really is a good thing. It is good conversation. The English Premier League, there is a vote due to take place today in terms of how the group trainings can begin probably this week or maybe sometime next week. So we are seeing a slowly but steady resumption of life into sport. And this is informed by the expert advice, what the scientists have said, that maybe we might have to live with the coronavirus as an endemic condition for a very long time to come. And therefore, the sooner we start thinking about getting back our life within the restrictions as practically as we can possibly do, the better for us, so that the economies can come back. And, you know, like Phineas pointed out earlier on, that sport is going to be one of the major recovery systems or avenues through which economies will be able to get people back to work. Countries will be able to get their social fabric working once again in terms of systems, in terms of economic injection for people to get back to work, because sport is about passion and its effect is almost instant. You can see the betting companies was quickly getting back to life. And you may have seen in your inbox, Robin, as a media practitioner, you know, press releases and media statements about how it has come back to life. And after this, I'll be going out, and my teams are going to get a brief to go out and get to talk to the people who, you know, who make a living, who make something out of sport or football being on television, football being on the menu that they are looking forward to. And you would be amazed by the feedback that you get from the people out there. And one of the ideas that I have seen that is coming out is that football fans want to start, you know, viewing parties and watch parties through the video conferencing, you know, platforms that exist like like Zoom and others, so that you get that feeling. And all of them, I think it is in Germany where the fans are saying they want to start group watching, group video conference during the live matches. And they would keep their microphones on, and all of them will be doing, showing their passion for the teams. And it will almost give the teams, I don't know how the technology would be infused into that to give the teams and the players in the stadia the kind of atmosphere that they need. But if that works, it is going to be amazing.
For the Kenyan fans, because we follow most of those European leagues, I don't know if will be factored in. That leads me to the question which you actually mentioned, that there's been a robust conversation in those leagues, Italy, France, Germany, Britain. It's the kind of conversation to get everyone, moving. But I haven't seen that robust conversation in the local league.
For obvious reasons, Robin, and of course, like I have said before, this is one of the discussions that I love having. That is about the joke that we have made of our football. And the obvious reason why there is no as much robustness in the discussion about Kenyan football as there is with other leagues or other jurisdictions in terms of football is because of the kind of litigation that we're having, the kind of lacuna that we find ourselves in terms of the leadership of the federation. If the federation was substantively in place, it had not exhausted its mandate, then obviously there would be leadership coming in. We would not be having, an extension of litigation with respect to number 3 and 5 of 2020.
But even then,
we would not be having number 7 of 2020 before the SDT. And those are the substantive reasons, in my view, that are gagging all of us, that are holding us back from having that kind of conversation. Because, Toskin, look at it this way. Nick Mwendwa right now, the leadership, Barry Otieno right now, do you think he has the guts, he has the confidence to come out and talk anything football, give any directives
we know, because
about
of the
football?
legal implications, that is difficult. But then the government, because of course, forgive me if I may sound like saying serikali's idea, but we've seen other governments coming out talking about the medical protocols that have to be followed. I've not seen that kind of thing coming from the medical fraternity, saying that we can also guide sportsmen and women of this country to go about their business.
One question you've got to ask yourself, Robin, when you talk about that is how substantive, even before COVID, how substantive, how structured has the involvement of the medical fraternity been in our football or sport in general? My take would be
the clubs
is that
have team doctors.
But those team doctors are there in their individual capacities. We do not have a structured engagement for the medical medical professionals' engagement in sport as a protocol, as we have seen. Do we even know who the head of the medical committee, or as it were, in the federation is at KPL level? These teams are just hiring medical doctors. As long as you're able or you have expertise to deal with the conditions that are associated with football, then you get a hiring to be a medical, the team doctor. But in terms of structured, substantive protocols in terms of how the teams are supposed to engage, what is the manual like for teams for the medical practitioners, we do not have that. And that is why at the medical level, as we have these conversations, unless the stakeholders, the football stakeholders and the government itself takes it upon itself now to say we want to resume, our normal activities, then we invite the medical bodies, the sporting fraternity to come together on the table and we examine how that return would be. Then I do not think, and honestly, for lack of a better word, and I would appear to be attacking the powers that be or the powers that were at at FKF, their impeachment by the SDT means they have the confidence and, the capacity has been sapped out of them. They do not know what to do, because I expect that Barry Otieno, in his capacity as the head of the FKF Secretariat, would continue to engage with government and other stakeholders in terms of how do we get back our game. But in the present circumstances, because of the battering and the beating that he has had to take because of certain actions that he took, which, as the protagonists are saying, have been off the line, off the mark, out of the legal instruments, it means that Barry Otieno has not then taken up the role to stand in the gap.
If I may interject and refer to one of the interviews I think you had with one of the motivational speakers. I think I saw it somewhere. Was it on Facebook or where?
Yes,
and the motivational speaker was talking about the need not to let a crisis go to waste. Now we have the COVID pandemic crisis. I don't know. The football authorities in this country, the Premier League and FKF, in the manner they are set up at the moment, do you think they can grasp this crisis and get some takeaways from it to improve the game?
Absolutely, and it was a very eye-opening conversation that I had with Mr. Nyanchama Joe in my platform. And one of the things we were talking about is that, yes, this is a big opportunity. And one such opportunity that we've had, for example, that we are letting slip through our hands, is that Barry Otieno should have taken the lead in this and take the opportunity and drive the conversation forward. It is not too late, I believe. And
but that
Barry
would be policy. Would that be policy? Which
it may not be policy, but the conversation going on is nothing wrong with that. He can, engage even through social media. He has the platforms. The Secretariat has the platforms. The Communication Department have the platform. And I want to challenge that instead of our good friend Ken Okaka and Barry Otieno getting into the kind of negative energy that litigation and litigants like ourselves can get them into, they should get creative and engage the football community in Kenya, the football fraternity beyond the borders of our country in terms of post-COVID, how do we get the funds back? And this goes to KPL and all the other leagues, including the clubs themselves. How do we get ourselves out of this? As we do the litigation, I think the major question that Toscan has to be grappled with, and I am one of those people that are beginning to say that is a question that we must now begin to seek answers for, is how do we move forward? Because at the end of the day, on Thursday, on Tuesday, sometime, whenever that would happen, is that we are going to get out of the corridors of justice. We are going to get back to the table and ask ourselves, then what happens? So we have won the case, we have lost the case.
We've got to ask ourselves the question, Milton. We have to ask ourselves the question as the media. Have we done our self-assessment and also provided direction, or we are just talking from a glass house?
Yes and no, Robin. And I would say that at personal level, I believe I have done what I should in terms of, asking and getting the answers to those questions. And that is why substantively I have been a party to the cases, and I am now at a point where, the tribunal asked us, and I have been giving it a thought, and I have, congressed with my colleagues who are parties to this case, and what I am saying is that this is the point at which now we have to ask ourselves that we have dug this hole thus far. What is our end game? What is the way forward? Shouldn't we now then stop digging and then come out of it and find a way forward? Because the question is that the leadership vacuum that we have occasioned on ourselves must be sorted.
But
how do we get the elections?
You keep talking about the leadership vacuum.
How do we?
You forget that clubs are a business. I want to see individual clubs taking the lead and saying, this is what we are doing, this is what we are doing for our players, and this is how we are keeping them safe, and this is how we are becoming innovative to ensure that post-COVID we'll have stronger brands. I'm not saying that.
It is not lost on me, and Robin, at the appropriate time, the world will get to know what engagements we've been having with certain football clubs, including the KPL, in terms of how do we make this conversation more meaningful as opposed to just an apparent attack on the leadership or the leadership that there was.
And the reason being, Milton, the reason, forgive me for this, pardon me, the reason being is that some of the clubs in the Kenyan Premier League are even saying it's a good thing that the season has been ended and therefore we didn't have the kind of money to finish the season. So if you have clubs with that kind of attitude, do you expect anyway to have anything?
That is what I'm saying, Robin, that what we must do is now bring this conversation home, take it home, put it on the home stretch in terms of, as clubs, these are business entities. They're supposed to be the business. This is what we were talking about a few weeks back when we said that the white-collar component of football in this country is not being harnessed. But we are at a point where we must now be able to ask the tough questions. We must roll up our sleeves and say we must be able to do it. And that is why, as a media practitioner, I have left the comfort of the desk. I have said I am not just going to write and assume that people are reading. I am not going to just talk and assume that people are watching and listening. I am going to get into the thick of things and ask these people on the table that, guys, this is what we must do. That is why I have come out and I am saying, my media colleagues, can we ask these questions, as tough as they may be? Can we now ask FIFA all the questions? And I'm glad that, Robin, you've taken the cue. You have been asking those questions. Let us ask those clubs the tough questions. Let us ask KPL the tough questions. What are they doing? Our brother, our friend, Frank, Jack, and everybody, Ambrose, as the chairman of the league,
make our game
what
that robust,
are you doing? You must now come to the table, and we are not going to write it in the paper alone. We are also going to call you. I'm going to ask you for that time to have coffee, to have whatever it is that you want us to have, so that I tell you across the table that this is what you must do. And that is why before the SDT, we are saying, we are telling John Ohaga as the chairman, Mr. Chairman, we want you to convene, we want to talk with each other. We do not want to talk at each other. We want to give meaning to our football. We want to bring our expertise on the table as stakeholders, as players, as opposed to just talking as fourth estate.
That was a robust conversation and tell it all. I want to thank you very much, Milton Nyakundi, for that engaging conversation because we are saying that everyone should play his or her part. The Kenyan Premier League has to play its part. The Football Federation, whoever is still there, because we know that there's a substantive CEO and we expect guidance from them. And then we just have to cross our fingers because today the FIFA Disciplinary Committee will sit again to listen to the case where we owe Adel Amrouche 109 million shillings in an arbitral award that was awarded last year on October 19. Now I can see my colleague Trix Ingaro is here because we don't have much more time. And Trix, I hope you've been keeping well.
Yeah, I have been keeping well and trying to stay safe, but I do admire the passion that you guys usually